I think I'll follow Farouk and I'll use this stage here. And just before we start, I think there has to be a big round of applause for our guest who came from abroad today. So please. I think starting with the topic, and if I'm looking at at mobile, so that's basically, I have some notes there, so no, I'm not attending calls and anything. Power of imagination. I think today, while we are sitting there, if you go back 20, 15 years back and imagine where you were and where you are and how you reached there, I'm sure there was some moment where you stopped and you imagined what you want to do in your life. And then you tried to collaborate, to visualize that, and then most importantly, feel that, how it will look like from like 15, 20 years in the future. And I think this is something which is the most important thing of imagination, that allow us to see and feel something which is not real yet. And that power drives us to really deliver on something through collaboration, through thinking ahead, and make it a reality. And I'll give you a very live example here. The Future Summit. Go back 7 years, there was one person who imagined that there has to be a forum where that futuristic conversation can take place. It was an imagination 7 years back. And today, we are seeing it as a reality. It took hard work. It took a lot of collaboration. It wasn't an easy journey, but it took a lot of commitment. So imagining is one part, but that's the most important part. It's a precursor to really feel it and then put commitment behind it. And here we are going to use two visionary leaders, and we will be asking them how they imagine the future today. And starting with you, Dana, how do you see short to long-term future, what's going to happen in future, how it will look like, and what are the motivation in driving and shaping that future? So over to you, Dana.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been in the tech industry since 1995, so I'm a bit of a veteran in terms of building tech companies, but also investing in tech companies. And in my more recent years, I've been advising a lot of governments and working on policy shaping in the innovation sector, and also to attract FDI to countries. So with that, I've been able to have sort of an aerial view, a distanced view on how innovation happens. And I speak a lot around the world about where does innovation come from and what motivates it. And very often, what I have seen in my experience is that you have two things happening in parallel, which is what I see happening today around the world. One is the natural progression of how technology evolves, such as AI or the metaverse or online banking or digital solutions in banking, robotics, elements like that. And how in this year ahead, I actually see a conversion of where robotics meet IoT, meet AI. So the natural progression of individual tech sectors coming together to create even more powerful solutions. An example I'll give, because it's so relevant around the world today, the whole world is facing agriculture and food security crisis, so one of the big investment pushes around the world has been in agri-tech and food security. And this is where we're seeing major advances on where technologies merge together to create incredible solutions. So one of the examples I will give is it's called Hands-Free Hectare. It's 35 hectares of land that's being farmed entirely by robots. So what happens is they collect the data as they go out, whether it's weeding or processing or planting or watering. They analyze everything from the humidity of the soil to sun exposure to wind to weather conditions, feeds back the data through an IoT, comprehensive system, analyzes the data through AI, and then automatically instructs the individual drones and robots and machines on how they should better enhance their performance, even if it's within a 1 meter segment of that land. That is something no human can do. So it's about precision farming. It's about using less water. And I just want to bring up a point, which is 70% of the fresh water used in the world is used for agriculture, of which 60% is wasted because we're using ineffective methods or old machinery, etc. The other thing that I see happening because all of this, and I'll give you an example, John Deere is a very big American brand that has robots and machinery that does all sorts of farming. And today, John Deere holds more data than Twitter does because they aggregate so much information from their machines. So what's happening now, and I'm so happy, by the way, it's the first country I ever go to. Thank you, Pakistan, for talking about cybersecurity. Thank you. I'm so proud of you. So what you see as a subsequent reaction to all of this data being aggregated and hosted by these agriculture companies is the attacks on supply chain and logistics are through the roof, and no one is talking about it. So I also see a need for specialized cybersecurity services, especially in agriculture innovation, which is a current new trend. So that's my one example of how natural progressions, needs, et cetera, are happening, and the conversion of great tech coming together to create even better solutions. Now, the second thing I'm also seeing is this immediate response from the tech industry or from innovators around the world to address the war and to address issues that are outside external factors. So they're not necessarily about, they're not necessarily about how AI has been evolving over the last years. We've been thrown into it. People are coming up with solutions. This is what us innovators do. We come up with solutions. Now, I'm so honored to be on the board, on the advisory board of the fastest growing fintech company out of Pakistan called Abhi. And it's an amazing product. It was built in Pakistan. And what's incredible about it is now it's being exported. Its know-how, its technology, its team, the way they handle things is being exported to the GCC. And so I'm helping them get into the GCC as they're starting with the UAE and next will be Saudi. And what Abhi does is tackle, this is my example of people creating solutions for external factors. I actually see a growth in banking services. I'm so happy to have heard several people speak earlier today about alternative banking services to address the growing divide between rich and poor. We are suffering around the world from this divide, which was already created with the pandemic and now has been further exacerbated by the war. Living conditions are so unbearable in certain cities that Paris is losing 15,000 citizens a month. People are moving in Europe to the south or even to North Africa because they simply cannot afford food or energy bills. The queues for food stamps in the UK now are 3 to 4 hours long, and the people standing in line are not the homeless, they're construction workers. This did not happen before. So I do see one of the impacts of external factors being ways to help financial inclusion, to bank the unbanked, and to, well, what Abhi does is earned wage access, but to help people pay bills on a smaller increments, but more regularly, so they can keep up with bills. So I see more types of solutions like this happening around the world, not just out of Pakistan, but also helping people in France and Germany and Panama and Colombia, because we're all sharing this problem together around the world.
Now, thank you, Dana. And I think it's a very important point you picked up. The next 2 year, World Economic Forum has identified cost of living as of #1 crisis, although it's in a year after, it leading to the more climate disasters and those areas. But in the next 2 years to survive, the cost of living is a very important area, and how technology or convergence of technology can create that reach and financial inclusion. I think that's an important way to imagine the future, that this is something which we are addressing, and the technology has got a capacity to really help us there. Ahmed, I'll come to your side, is how you see the community and society evolving when you are imagining the future. So what are your views and perspective around the community and society side?
Thank you. Thank you, Dana, for helping. So thank you very much for the question. And let me start from a little bit step back, because I need to make us an intro here. Because the future mainly defined by factors and indicators. Let me start from economy side, because economy always shape things, and then technology help to implement. So to change and have acceptance to this change, I think you need to start with, from my personal experience, short planning, not long planning. Because I know some countries and companies, they put a lot of strategy, a lot of plan. I used to be a strategy officer in certain part of my career, month of planning. But then when they move to execution, they discover that they need to go back to the plan, because it wasn't considering reality on the ground. And this is your question. So planning should be shorter, and should focus on what really matters, what really making the future for people and communities and companies. Second, any plan, any future plan, need a commitment from you to make this change happen. So I will give you example, and I will go straight to your question. I remember the question, but I wanted to make this. Look to countries that are successful in moving. Let me see to acceptable stage. Look to Dubai, for example. All of you been in Dubai or visited or planning to visit. If you go back 40 years ago, and there are big story about Rashid, Sheikh Rashid, the father of Sheikh Mohammed, the current ruler of Dubai. Somebody told him, why you are allowing Kuwaitis and Bahrainis and Saudis to come and build here and expand in our territory? It is our land. Why you are allowing them? Many Kuwaitis, many Bahrainis, because Dubai people are not that, they are bored. And he said, what is the problem with that? He said, what if we don't have a relationship with those countries anymore? What is going to happen? He said, those people will leave. He said, okay, let them leave. So what? And then he said, by the way, if they leave the country, let them take the buildings with them. So he's sending a message. They are giving you opportunity to grow here. So they will not leave with the investment with them. So this is one example. So the second point I wanted to mention is the mindset of change. Accepting the change and finding the change agent, people willing to make it work. And then coming to the society and your question here. There will be no successful plan without engaging the whole society, because the change will touch their life every day. So in a country like Pakistan, I was looking to the population. You have a very young population, 60% of population below the age of 30. This is a big asset. It is the Amir Ibrahim in the morning, he said the data is the oil of future. For me, youth is the oil today and the future. This asset is very important. What they need in future is what should be the plan. So there are many things now. If you think future, there are technologies that you need to use, deploy, and leverage to optimize your current waste. There was a good point in the morning from William when he mentioned that when they digitize small companies, they try to get anybody in the business model that has no role out. This is it. So technology will help you to optimize, to make things more efficient. So the existing resources can help you to move to future. But then future is even more than this. So engaging the society, the right education, let me see, objectives that help people life better. And this is in our company, we put a vision that is there for the last 50 years. Help people have a better life. Because if you don't have this in mind, then all what you are doing is something temporary. They might use it and then drop it. So back to your question, yes, there are tools, there are ways, there are plans, but society need to accept that change. You need that change agent that will educate and help the society and people, universities, regulatory bodies, all of those community need to accept this, and then you go to. And this is the hard part, because the planning phase is not the hard part. Planning phase is clear. For example, in Pakistan, you don't have oil, but you have good people, you have youth, you have a services industry that can help other countries. So it is not it doesn't need a very, very strategic guy to tell you the plan, but you need someone to help you to make that work for you. So I hope I address your question
Thank you, Ahmed. I think you picked up a very, very interesting point, that how to prioritize and what to plan. I think that's an important piece. And you picked up a very right priority. Like if we are talking Pakistan, then the priority is not to find the oil. Its priority is to make sure that the talent which exists there, which Dan also mentioned that it's a fantastic talent which is basically delivering value even outside Pakistan. So how we can focus on that. So picking up on the planning cycle you picked up right now, you are a global organization, SAP, and you have got multiple clients around the world. So how you are imagining the future with them, and what you are doing in your organization and with the client to shape up that future which you feel is going to exist in the next 6 to 12 months or 3 years or 5 years. So how your organization is planning and prioritizing with your client at the same time.
Yeah, I will try to give you practical things, because I know the technology company always in an event like this talk about very fancy AI things in future, but when you think a bit after the seminar or after the event, you say, okay, but this is maybe not relevant to me. So what we do in SAB and in the region here. So we try to look into the global strategy and technology trends, same AI, quantum computing, all these trends, and we see what is relevant to us here. But to be honest with you, we get the plan from community and government. We go to Vision, for example, 2035 of Pakistan, Vision 2030 Saudi Arabia, Vision 2035 in Kuwait. And we try to understand what they want to do, what is the problem they are trying to solve. And we try to be as close as possible from this. First of all, it makes us more relevant to them, and they accept us and they work with us, which is what we want. But at the same time, we feel we are proud, we are helping, solving problems in those. Now, let me conclude with this. In the Middle East region, I started 2012 with this. So the moment I step into the company, they told me, there is a plan. Thank you very much. Just go execute. There is 5 years plan, and there is investment. We want you to do it. That was the initially. So I said, fine, let me see if the plan is okay. Plan is good. It is to build the ecosystem and help SAB bring partner and invest in talent and educate people so that we can start doing business. But then the big question came after 5 years, in 2016. So we have people, they know SAB, we have good customer, they want us to work with them. And we identified a mega project, or let me say mega challenge that we are very interested to help with. But then what is the next 5? So that was the question. So we start thinking 5 years, not 1 year, not next year, not how we do it this year. So the next one, well, for us, we said this region are not yet developed enough from legal and regulatory perspective to host a global company data center, for example. We said we want to host the data here. People need to see their data in the country, in those. So we start working with the regulatory body. It is a little bit outside the scope of work we are supposed to do in this region, but we work with them until we secure the right level of trust between the company and regulatory bodies in the countries we are working on, and then we host the first cloud. We are the first company hosting all solutions in one country, outside Germany and US, because we know that people will challenge you. If you want to be relevant, then you have to be here with us. And then the next 5 years, which is starting 2021, big question, what's next? What's 5 years? And it is simple, how we can be relevant. Don't tell me about AI, advanced things, fine. This is great, fine, we can go put it in seminars and events, but people or government would like a partner that can start working tomorrow on a problem of tomorrow. Employment, for example. For example, I give you example of Hajj. You are familiar with Hajj. In 2018, we had a big incident there, and many people died in that. So the moment that happened, we approached the government. We said, guys, you are relying on old mechanism of traffic management. Let us do it for you. And we done it free. 2019 Hajj was free. We deployed IoT everywhere. We convert what we call tafweej, which is traffic management, into automation, where the system predict where the hot area, where the congestion going to be, and help them to do it. This is a problem, need to be solved. So then the question, 2021, we said, what next? The next is innovation. And we need to host innovation in this region, because innovation is not relevant or related to one economy or one country. Every country, they have their own challenges, and they wanted to innovate to solve those challenges. And we hosted the third innovation center globally in the country, in Saudi Arabia now. But it is serving the whole region, because Saudi, because of size of economy. So this is, back to your question, it is long answer, but the question is, or the answer is, you need to be relevant.
Yep. No, I think that's...
And again, this is applicable to Pakistan. Our colleagues in Pakistan, they are educated in Pakistan, work in Pakistan, and they know Pakistan problem. So we did not bring somebody from outside, even education-wise, except one individual who been. We appreciate all schools, but the point, you need people who knows the country they are belong to.
No, thank you, Ahmed. I think the two key points is that when you are plan something as a solution which is urgent and important and short term, don't look in a 5 years future what the problem will come. Your starting point is urgent and important. There will be critics. People will challenge you on that, and you have to be firm what you are imagining and why there is a value, and staying relevant for that. I think that's the key messages which we picked up. And I'll come to Dana, to your side. Like when you look at the countries like Pakistan, like Ahmed also picked up a couple of things. When you look at Pakistan, what do you see which can make Pakistan more relevant in the world, and which can help us to really become a part or have that mind share in the innovations and invention around the world?
Can you hear me? I'm loving this conversation. It relates back to this morning's panel about how does Pakistan stay relevant? How do you pick up on that? And then my dear colleague on stage, I'm from the GCC, so I'm also loving the way Saudi has approached it, and how, you know, the Middle East is sort of coming out of this post-pandemic era stronger than ever, so it makes me very proud. I would like to share a quote, first of all. It's something that I truly believe in, and I think it may resonate with some of the other panelists that were speaking about the word purpose or relevance. And it's a quote from Guy Kawasaki, and he talks about changing the world. And he says, if you go out in the world to make money, you will fail. But if you go out in the world to make meaning, you will change the world and you will make money. So this is something I truly believe in as someone who has built tech companies and now who is sort of on the other side helping governments, you know, find their meaning or their relevance. One of the key things I want to share with you, because I work with so many countries around the world, is it only works when there is some kind of meaning, making meaning or purpose. This is what resonates, I think, with the 5-year plan as a vision, but then short tactical successes that you can point to and say, we did that, we did that, we did that. Here's what's coming in because of each one of these steps. So that's the first thing. The example I'd like to give you is Rwanda. Rwanda is a tiny country that is completely landlocked. They don't really have natural resources. They don't have ports. They're stuck between countries in Africa. They had a terrible civil war, genocide, about 15 years ago, which we all know about. And today, they're called the Switzerland of Africa. Because in 15 years, they got together and said, we need to make meaning. We need to find our relevance. We have no gold, we have no oil, we're a tiny country that's locked between many other, we don't have supply chain and logistics, we don't have any strategic ports. How do we invent ourselves to become relevant? And they decided to focus on education, girls and boys, over 10 years, and to focus on blockchain technology, crypto, whatever it is. And now they're doing deals with DIFC in Dubai, so they can be the main hub of receiving funds from Dubai into Africa and then be sort of the port of call center for dispatching funds through the rest of Africa, thus the Switzerland of Africa. Took them 15 years. So it is possible to find relevance if everyone agrees on what is our mission, what are we trying to do? Because if you have a mission and you make meaning, public sector and private sector know the direction they're going in together. And that's when you find alignment and synergies. So that's an example I'd like to give you. To address your question about Pakistan. So as you know, I work a lot on FDI, and the first thing I do is I look at a country and go, right, what are we working with? Who is aligned? What's the mission? What is the purpose of the country? What do you want to be? What, not today, but what you want to be and what you have to make it happen. Completely agree with the youth. I think it's 64% of your population is under the age of 30. So youth is a huge asset. Everyone has talked about it today already, so I don't need to go back into it. Of course, education is key. I also think it's very interesting that nobody ever talks about that. You have the best special forces in the world. You're in the top 6 in the world. And if you can build the most agile, performant, intelligent, and tight teams, like a special forces team, and be one of the top 5 or 6 in the world, you can build the best center of excellence on cybersecurity in the world. Because they go hand in hand. Warfare is no longer physical, it's now digital. And we all know that, right? So I also go around the world building cyber centers of defense, cybersecurity and defense around the world, and I do it between the public and the private sectors so we can protect each other or protect our regions of the world. There are more bad guys than good guys right now. So that's one example of what you already do very well, right? So then, obviously, we talked about agriculture. A lot of people brought that up. Agritech, absolutely. We need to feed the world. There are certain countries in the world today that are positioning themselves because of the land and the know-how in agriculture, upgrading it, you know, so it's not necessarily about knowing how to code in AI, but upgrading their systems to have more performant agriculture and feed sections of Africa. There are certain countries that have decided we're going to be the feeding center. I think you talked earlier this morning, there was a speaker talking about the granary, right? You were the granary in the past. So that's something to tap into because you already have access to it, you have the know-how, it's a historic component, and it's a critical time today in the world to feed people and address these issues. There's something else I want to talk about, and that's because I'm a lady, and that is women in the workforce. And this is something that is really, really important because today I believe the population breakdown is roughly 51% men, 49% women in Pakistan, and yet only 20% of labor is run by women, right? So I just want to mention that studies have shown that female-led exporting business earn more than male-led exporting businesses. Women employ more people and pay higher wages than non-exporting firms. And data supports that female-led companies are more innovative and in turn foster faster inclusive economic growth. And let's remember, this is something we all generically know, women who receive microloans first invest in their children's education and then the broader community around them. So finding ways of having more women in the workforce can only increase the capital within the country as well. So I think this is really important.
Thank you, Dana. I think just 1 minute and
Sure.
let us know what are your top 3 recommendations. Just a minute.
I'm sorry, my top recommendations?
For Pakistan, for the audience
Yeah.
who is sitting here, how they should be looking at future.
Yes, so I think the alternative banking solutions for financial inclusion is important. I think tackling more women so we can increase that 20% to maybe 30% would add more to the economy and also help the community aspect of working in communities and increasing the revenue generated, not as a country as a whole, but small economies around. I think that this is something more technical. Obviously, it doesn't address all of the kids who don't have the education, but cyber defense can be something extremely strategic for the region, because it is a very, very important need in the world. Agritech is also something extremely, extremely important.
No, thank you, Dana. I think we are running a little short
Sure.
on the time, but believe me, you will get a lot of people who will be approaching you during
My
the
pleasure.
lunch and the afternoon session. And 1 minute for you, Ahmed, just your top 3 recommendations, how we should be seeing, whether as an industry, whether as a civil society or a government, how we should be imagining the future and what we should be doing.
Thank you. Very quickly here, I think, as I said earlier, it is services out of Pakistan is a big potential. You have the talent, you have all what is needed. What is recommendation is to gain more trust from global community in the regulation side. So regulation is really what makes Singapore very successful, because people trust central banks and banks open there and so on. So regulation, number 1. Number 2, to continue, adopting technology, because what you can export out is technology as well. Thank you.
Now, thank you very much, Ahmed and Dana. I think great advice. We will help. I'm sure it will help you to imagine something. My last message while we are wrapping up, I would suggest be bold, dare to imagine. And that's important, because that's the first step. That's the starting step. So if we don't dare to imagine, we will not be able to create those reality which through the power of imagination we can see and feel today. I would also encourage you to collaborate. Like if we are seeing the future, we are seeing the convergence of the technologies as well. Like if we see the autonomous vehicle, it's the green energy, the storage of energy, automobile industry, AI, data, connectivity, and that's create an automobile, which is autonomous, which is guided by the certain data side of it. And then think ahead. Don't look at your current situation, because in a current situation, you might have a lot of challenges. And that will not let you really feel how it will look like, or how you will be happy to see that if you change that reality which exists today. But it starts with that imagination and the feeling. And then contribute, and that's I always suggest, contribute in shaping the future. So if you have to contribute, that will require you to dare to imagine, collaborate, be bold, create opportunity, take opportunity, think ahead, and finally shape that future through actions. So thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for being here, such a lovely audience, while I'm standing between you and food right now. So we will hand over to moderator again. Thank you very much.
Extend the souvenir to Mr. Ahmed Al-Faifi. Ms. Dana Salem. One of our favorite moderators, Sajjeed Aslam. If we could request Farooq to please join us on stage. You know, one of the trends, TFS right now has 4 of the top 10 trends right now on Karachi and Pakistan panel. And one of the trends is also CEO and presidents, and that is because we have so many of them here. And their pressing commitments is making some of them leave urgently. We totally understand, and we are extremely grateful for them for joining us here and for sharing their ideas and suggestions. So thank you so much.